Thank you for having me here. My name is Paul Sears. I am currently the CTO of Computrade Technology Philippines. We are a primarily an AWS advanced tier partner, and we help customers in various segments, FSI, manufacturing, retail, help them work their workloads or move their workloads into the cloud or hybrid architectures. But before that, I was with AWS for almost 9 years, and I've always been involved in the skill side of things, particularly with the students coming up and communities and user groups and such. And I have a lot of insights around my passion, which is upskilling the workforce here in this country.
Thanks, Paul. By the way, Kirk cannot join us today because of a personal emergency. We wish him well and his family. So, Paul, just like you, I'm also passionate with human capital, as we call it, or skilling the workforce. And right now, currently, there's a big disruptor that's happening right worldwide. I mean, if in the 1940s nuclear was the global power, right? Now it's going to be AI. And countries are scrambling, to get resources, secure those GPUs and tensor processing units, of course. Plus, they need a skilled workforce. In the Philippine context, there are like 5 challenges that we're facing. Narrowed it down. Poor educational outcomes, the PISA ranking, for example. Underinvestment in education skills training. Corruption and bureaucratic efficiencies. Plus, there's private-public partnerships, but they often face bureaucracy or red tape or hurdles. And last but not the least, this is very important for all of us, especially for those of you who are growing and you're finding it hard to find good people, mismatched skills, and job market. So those are the 5 things, Paul. Maybe you'd like to zero in on one of them so that we can start discussing how we can overcome these obstacles.
Sure. I'll put a little perspective on the skills mismatch aspect first. So working with AWS and work with a lot of customers across many segments, and even now with customers, a common theme was they are not able to hire talent in the organization. They cannot find talent with modern skills, whether it's cloud-based or even modern on-premise based or traditional but more modernized, and even AI, right? So AI is the revolution happening right now, and there's not enough support to help people learn the skills they need to master these particular new domains. And AI is going to be here for a while. Who knows how long, but it's still driving everything. And so schools are not able to keep up. Technology moves too fast, and schools are not able to adjust their curriculums or offer courses or the appropriate skills training to help them, graduates and even postgraduates, to get those skills to become employable or at least viable, because now the burden gets shifted to the employers. And so what we're seeing is a even more extreme separation between the highly skilled and the junior workforces, because the juniors are having a hard time getting the skills, the basic skills to get in the industry. And then the seniors are getting more skills, more specialized, and then they're getting picked off, right? A lot of people moving between companies who need that skill. So it's really spreading the distance between the senior and the junior levels. And we need to bring more skills to the juniors to make them more available to all employers. So that's, I think, a big challenge, and the gap is widening.
Yeah, that's good. For most of our tech professionals here, it's critical that you partner with your HR leaders, right? Because they're the ones who are going to search the talents for you. Paul, any insights, best practices you see, not just in the Philippines but in the region, where HR, for example, became a driving force to help, for example, our data center practitioners here and the executives to get the right people at the right role and at the right price. So,
Yes.
yeah.
So I think I see 2 situations. One where, unfortunately, more common than not, companies in HR do not want to invest in training because they're afraid that if they train the workforce goes somewhere else. And that's really a side effect of other issues in the organization, not so much on the skills, but maybe around compensation, maybe around other things to keep them competitive, right? So that's still, unfortunately, a problem. A lot of customers have that perspective that I don't think is going to make them successful. But then we have some more innovative companies who are willing to invest. They find programs, they find partnerships to help them level up and invest in their professionals, right? So I'll give you a good example. In CTP, we heavily invest in our team. We help them get their certifications, particularly in cloud computing on AWS, but we help them do that. So we help them mature. We send them to different schools, and we take that risk. We understand that, yeah, they could have all these skills and one day say, I'm going somewhere else. But we're hope that we can maintain the right culture and the right reasons for them to stay and be part of our team. So I think there's a cultural shift between, cultural difference between more innovative HR, innovative companies that were willing to invest, and it's rewarding too, because as the teams get more skilled, they also become more enabled in the organization to do more, right? More promotable, able to take on new projects. Is your headphones blocking? Yeah, mine's dropping too. More things like that. So whereas if you don't invest, you keep the skills relatively unchanged, and you rely on the workforce to skill themselves. They're limited, and they do look for other ways to find opportunity, right? So, but so innovative, good companies, I think, are the ones that are investing in the people, the talent they've hired. You already hired them, right? You've already brought them on board. Now you want to invest and continue to invest and develop them.
You mentioned tiers, right? Tiers of skilled workforce. Of course, the top, these are the C levels and line managers. And then you have the middle, these are the hard workers, they're the guns. And then you have entry level. Right? Let me cite the best practice that I saw from the healthcare industry. In the Philippines right now, we lack nurses. You know why? Because hospitals from all over the world have partnered with schools. And the moment that a nursing student, enrolls in that school, she or she becomes their scholar. And there's going to be like a contract in that company and that student. Once that student graduates and passes the board, he or she is going to have direct employment.
Right.
So that can address, for example, the first tier entry level. Can we do something like that similar to the tech industry, especially for cloud and data center?
So that's actually a very interesting question. So I think on a vocational type of skills, that can be solved, like you said, with programs where it's more you skill them, you school them, and hire them. The problem with tech is it's still moving so fast that even if you have dedicated institutions that are just churning out high-tech graduates, the curriculums have to change so fast. So how do we continue to invest in the mechanisms to train, right? So if the technology is evolving so quickly, we need the schools and the institutions who are training to evolve as quickly. And that requires a lot of investments out there. So even if you partner with a tech school or trade school or something on, let's say, generative AI, well, it may work for now, but as generative AI moves down the road and gets more advanced and we change in other domains, what happens to that schooling, right? So it's really difficult. I don't think there's a clear answer, but we do need a lot more investment. You mentioned earlier, we need a lot more investment in this country. We need a lot more government support of institutions, whether they're private or public institutions. We need also to upskill the faculty, the ones who are doing the training, because they're falling behind as well. I've been approached by many schools personally, and with a startup I have, about how to upskill those faculty, particularly in the public state schools that do not have extra budget to spend on bringing in coursework and modifying curriculums. They're limited, right? So we're seeing this grow. So let's say we do form an institution. I think it's a great idea, and we should start. That's a good experiment to try. The question is, can we keep the institution skilled itself in order to deliver the training to the consumers, the learners, right? I think that's something we have to see how it plays out, because that's a constant investment. And at AWS, and I think many modern tech companies, they allow the workforce to spend some percentage of time, like 20% on average, to do other things, to learn other things. And that's a pretty common thing. So maybe in a school like that, the faculty, whatever else, committed to delivering curriculum 70% or whatever else, and then a 30% they are being redeveloped as well. But then who trains them? How do you get the experts, right? It's such a hard problem with the rapid evolution of technology. But we can start somewhere, and we need support, particularly around investment and finances.
Got it. There's a global benchmark for education investment. It's around 6% of GDP, right? The Philippines is only half of that.
Yes.
So you know that number, right? So let's go to the middle tier. This is normally, they're the people who are ready to become managers, right, or to become C levels. Normally, in this segment, there's a lot of poaching that's happening.
Yes.
Filipinos go outside.
Yep.
So again, it's brain drain. The only way for us to address that is to produce more first level so they can pick up the slack whenever someone from the middle level goes in. Any tips for how do you keep the middle level, workforce in tech so that they stay on? At the same time, can micro credentials help? Additional incentives, for example, loyalty programs and other stuff. So yeah, any thoughts on that one?
So when you mentioned the brain drain, a lot of it is going to be compensation based. They're going to go work for employers overseas, U.S., Canada, Australia, who are going to offer a higher compensation and maybe even remote work. So we have a lot of policies we're doing here. I don't want to get into politics around remote work versus return to office, but that does have a big impact. As you become more skilled, you can become more selective in where you work. So now opportunities become more specific to what your personal life requirements are, right? I don't want to work 5 days a week in the office, or I do love it. Some people love it, some don't, right? But now when you get those skills and the credibility and your own brand built, you can now reach out further and find opportunities that would not necessarily be open to you. So I think in order to reduce that brain drain is we have to be competitive here in this country. So that means employers need to keep the mid-level, senior level employees in their companies engaged in ways that are meaningful. So culture, compensation, responsibility. Can you give a individual contributor a lot of authority in their own role to experiment, to innovate, those kind of things? That actually keeps people. They like to do those things. They want to have the opportunity to make some decisions and choice. So we pushed more of that into there. Maybe not so much building the leadership up, but spreading leadership around in certain areas in there, and helps engage and help grow and develop those seniors even more, right? So I guess one distinction you're making is when I'm talking about juniors and seniors, I'm only talking about the actual workers, the tech areas, because I'm not really talking about management. I think as you go up to the pyramid, it's less and less. We know that already. It's already a challenge. But I think that the companies that I've been working with, engaging with, they're trying to discover the tech development, the tech deliverables that they can't hire for. And so like you mentioned, a lot of poaching happens in that one level because there are only so many highly skilled tech workers, right? So you got to develop them. I think it's investing in schooling, offer the training, and continue to develop your staff when you have them. You brought them on board. Now they're senior. Give them more responsibility and to do like design projects and design deliverables and engage even on ideation and innovation. That I think goes a long way to making them feel like they have some value versus just someone doing work, right? So it's a cultural thing, but some companies get it and more are getting it. And I think that's the problem is we don't have enough moving up to fill out what we need at that level, right? So more and more companies are coming around and they want to hire more tech, and then we have less of the seniors to draw from. So the pool gets spread wider, right? And where we don't have enough juniors moving up, that's the real problem, I think.
Yeah, if they can't move up, they move out, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I'd like to discuss also stress. In the Philippines, there's a study actually that came out that the Philippines is one of the least in terms of work-life balance, right? I have a slide there, but I didn't show it. And then secondly, the Philippines ranks second in Southeast Asia in terms of stress. The number one is Myanmar. I mean, there's stress there because there's war, right? But number two, Philippines, right? And stress plays a very critical factor, especially a person who's tired can send out the wrong patch and then cause a global, what happened, isn't it like? Or send out a full database should not be sent out. So stress plays a big factor, right? Sure, you're upskilling yourself, but if HR and the board doesn't manage the well-being of their employees, it's going to be disastrous for organizations. Any thoughts on that?
Fix the traffic issue. So as personal reflection, even as a CTO, I'm constantly stressed because of my commute. Okay, so that's just a side issue. But seriously, you pointed out we need to be wellness. We need to work-life balance. It needs to be something we really are serious about, because there are other opportunities out there around the world that may have a better balance. And as you get more senior, you're going to start pursuing those, exploring those, because I could sit at home and work for a company in Australia and make more money and have less stress. versus staying here, right? And how does that, what wins, right? Ultimately, the less stress, the better work life, the better mental health will pay out. So I think companies need to think about that, how they invest in their people they hire, the resources they spend a lot of time developing. You're developing them now, grow them, but also balance your work life out, right? Just try to not treat workers as something we can exploit, but someone that we're partnering with our staff. They're our partners too. We're helping us deliver for our customers, right? So I think we've got to shift that conversation and shift that perspective.
Yeah. Thank you. Show of hands, please. If you have an offer to work in Japan, same role, will you take it?
Not Japan.
Not Japan. Oh, what about Australia? Australia. Like to take Australia? Yeah. Of course, we'll take it, right? Anyway, again, work-life balance is key because if you have a stressed workforce, disasters can happen, right? Okay, next point. It's very interesting for people. Is certification key? We have micro-credentials, right? And then how can it, for example, help an organization to optimize its workforce and optimize its cloud and data center investments?
So that's an interesting question about if certification is key. I think depending on what your organization does, like for example, in my company, certifications give you credibility for your customers because you now have staff that are trained on certain and measured on certain capabilities, right? In your own organization, it just really depends on what you're trying to do. But certifications will definitely help. But there are certifications mean you can understand a topic and you can take a test. Doesn't always mean you can apply it properly. So we see that a lot too. That we get a lot of people who can take certifications, get a lot of certifications, but don't have the whole lot of actual practical ability to apply it. But that's not small. It's a small issue. So I think certifications are valuable. I think it does. It's worth investing in, particularly on yourself, because it gives you credibility, gives you the ability to stand again in that domain as an expert on that topic, and that's going to help you develop, help you become more the rewards. Like for example, at CTP, we increase the salary for each certification they get. So they get a bump every time they get a certification. It's an incentive for them and also credibility, and helps us with our customers, right? So it can be that way. You can actually figure out mechanisms to reward your teams to upskill, and then they become more valuable to your organization and help you do your business. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. But for some companies, if you get certified and your company pays for it, you may need to extend your stay, right? I mean, some of you, have you signed up on those?
Sure. Yeah, that's true. I mean, there's investment on both sides.
I know. No. But I know some people, they use their own money to pay for it, to avoid that one. If there's a country I think that we can look up to, it's Singapore. Singapore has a nationwide strategy for upskilling, right? Any lessons from Singapore that we can adopt here? For example, one city like Pasig, the mayor there, right? Having a similar model where they know everyone who works, in Singapore. Each Singaporean has a roadmap for skills development, and they have budget. They have allocated, scholarships for their seniors and other in Singapore who want to upskill. Any thoughts on how we can, adopt a best practice like that in the Philippines? Maybe a city can take it up first, for example. Yeah.
So I think the Singapore model is really good. I think it's very beneficial in propelling Singapore to a technology stronghold, right? They're really getting the skills there. In this country, there's a lot of systemic challenges. You need to understand how going all the way down into the lower level schools, how DepEd operates and how CHED operates and how funding flows through the system. We're not getting enough funding to the institutions, the schools themselves to deliver. I think we're getting close on time. But I think so if we would able to prioritize and fund higher and make sure the funds are used correctly for the right reasons, and then that's the first piece. The second piece is to follow. I mean, TESDA is attempting to do some sort of standardization, right, on what it means to be a certain level of skill, what competencies are, right? Have a standard language for competencies across the nation for tech jobs as well as non-tech jobs, everything out there. So get that standards in place and have schools measured against that. Not necessarily curriculums in terms of degrees and what you offer, but how do you measure against those standards and then raise those standards up. They're not one and done. You keep evolving them, improving them. Now you increase standards to include machine learning. You increase standards to include AI. And now you do Gen AI. Then those things, right? So you got to. It's still got to happen. It's a flywheel. The government's got to invest, right? And then they got to keep investing and developing. And then the learners get the skills, and then they go with the program, and then they take it into the industry, to their employers, and they continue doing that. So it's a constant investment. I think the word I've been saying more than anything is investing, right? So, but Singapore, like I said, they have budget. They spend the money on this. We don't have that focus here. I think in this country, that's really a key issue in order to really make tech skills more available to the masses. I work with a lot of students who are in rural state schools, and they're brilliant, they're smart, but they don't have access to the same resources that you do in NCR, right? So if you're in Batangas, you're in Cavite, you're in Laguna, coming here to do a meetup, to a community event, or to get a training in a seminar is very hard, challenging for them financially and time-wise because of distance and everything. So we need to push this not just in Metro Manila, but everywhere across the country, right?
Yeah, thank you for that one. So, Paul, before I open it up for question, I have one last question for you. Actually, on top of the top tier professionals are the board. And normally, how many people experience, if you propose a budget to the board, they slash it in half. No questions, right? Same thing for training. For training, I think it's more than half when they cut it. How do you convince, the board to invest in upskilling, especially now that AI is driving changes, cyber attacks are more frequent, but there's still owners of companies who are still closed to investing properly on tech. So any thoughts on that? How do you convince your board? Yeah.
So I think you need to have the perspective, what is the value that the company gets from this investment, right? So they're cutting the budget because they don't necessarily understand the value, the return of the investment. And so you can take model companies that are heavily investing in their training budgets, in their skilling, in their way they operate. Like there's innovators out there. So Globe is doing a lot with this. Gcash is doing a lot with investment. So I think you can use those as models for success and say the value is coming back, your returns are growing. Can you put it on paper and say you're going to get a 2x, 3x? I don't know, but you'll get a return back with less turnover, better ability to deliver for your customers. Ultimately, you're trying to sell or deliver services, and you need to be able to do better at that. So you train your workforce. So I think it's just a conversation. It's just shifting the conversation from a expense into an investment and the return on that investment.
Yeah, that's good. We're open for questions. We have time for 2 to 3 questions. So please ask Paul. His time is precious. So.
Gotta remove our headsets.
Oh, okay. Sorry for that one. You should experience it. Any questions from the young ones? Career questions that you'd like to ask?
Everybody's shy because it's...
Yeah, I know. If there's any reading that I'd like to recommend, it's the World Economic Forum's Future of Jobs Report 2025. Please download that one. It will show to you the trajectory and how disruptive tech like AI, quantum computing is going to disrupt, our industry in the years to come.
Yes.
By 2030, approximately 22% of jobs now will disappear. But it will be replaced by new ones.
But newer, higher skill jobs.
That's correct. That's correct. So, I think, Brendan, there you go. Thank you. Yeah, please state your name.
Finally. Okay. I was just trying to create the question in my mind. My name is Rona from Grover Consult. So, as I transition from a B2C to a B2B scale, and the more I learn about upskilling the workforce or more on upskilling my skills in order to go to the higher or to the next level, I was just wondering here, Mr. Paul, what do you think are the top 5 skills that the generation today must focus on so we will be timely relevant at the same time we can also forecast the coming generation?
I have a mic. Yeah. I think I'll let Sam also add to this, but my perspective, the top 5 skills are, number 1, critical thinking. You need to have this in a technology skill. You got to know how to ask questions and try to analyze. So that's a foundational skill for anything above that. You should know data science or be familiar with data science. It kind of drives. That's the data is the underpinning for AI, right? So you got to know data, and then obviously understand machine learning AI at least at a operational or usability level, right? I'm not saying be AI algorithm designer, but at least at a relatively good level. Cybersecurity is going to be a really critical skill going forward. It's could probably become one of the most important skills in the next 5 years, in my opinion, based on the trends we're seeing with how technology is overtaking everything and how even nation states are really getting involved in this now. That's a really important skill. So, but first of all, critical thinking. That's the main one. If you don't have the ability to think critically, you won't be able to understand the requirements of these higher level skills.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. I'm ready for your question. I'm going to quote from the Future of Jobs report, and I'm going to double your ask. Okay? So, AI and big data, number one. Fastest growing skills with networks and cybersecurity, technology literacy, creative thinking, resilience, flexibility and agility, curiosity and lifelong learning, leadership and social influence, talent management, analytical thinking, and environmental stewardship. Please do download that report. It's very comprehensive. So you'll see the directions you're going to take. Is that it, Sir Chair? Okay, good. So
I think
thank
we're
you,
good.
Paul.
Yes, thank
Great
you.
stuff. So
Thank you. My
we can
pleasure.
talk about this whole day, man.
Yes, we could.
And then-